Do you need a financial advisor? What are the benefits of having one and what are the costs? These are questions that we will be answering today. So make sure you stick around until the end because we will be going over the biggest mistakes that people make with their finances. Today here with me is Phil Reiter with Northwestern Mutual. He's a financial advisor. So welcome, Phil. Tell us about what do financial advisors do?
Hey, Joe. Well, thanks for having me. Great question to start out with. Financial advisors do quite a few things, but most importantly, they're really helping clients align their most important goals with their actions.
Okay.
And the goal of a financial advisor is really to help people prioritize these goals and help them figure out really an action plan to get from where they are today to where they ultimately want to go, whether that's 5 years or 45 years down the road. And through that whole process, a financial advisor is going to help you understand your strengths of your plan as it is today, but also where there's some weaknesses that can be addressed. And along those lines, they'll help by recommending a course of action that you can take to get incrementally closer to the goals that are most important to you. And as you might imagine, Joe, financial planning is not necessarily a static event. So it's important that it's not a set it and forget it. You need to make sure that you're working with your financial advisor to continue to monitor your progress. And if life throws you a curveball, you have a session to address how you might change your plan in light of the curveball that comes your way.
Okay, so it sounds like a financial planner is someone that's going to be with you and help make sure that you accomplish your goals depending on what your goals are and for however long those goals, whether it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, right?
Yep, exactly.
So what are some of the main goals or things that people usually have when they think of their finances? What are some of the themes or trends that you're seeing?
Some of the real common things that people will talk about, well, first and foremost, it's almost always retirement planning. I want to retire someday. For some folks, that seems like an impossible goal. Some folks are really excited about it and they just want to know what exactly they have to do. So wherever people fall on that spectrum, working with an advisor is helpful that way. A lot of people with children will ask me about, hey, I want to help my kids go to college. College is so expensive right now. How is that even be possible? Well, working with an advisor can help you kind of break that down into more manageable process of doing that. Are helping people review their investment accounts, help them with debt management. Student loans are a big issue for a lot of the clients we work with. They could also be, estate planning, charitable giving, cash flow. There's a lot of topics that people have, and no two people are alike, but those are some of the most common ones that we see.
Sure. So it sounds like you would review the full spectrum of finances from retirement, helping your kids get through college, planning for, your estate. So just the whole spectrum of finances. That's great. So what are some of the benefits of having a financial advisor?
Yeah. So when a lot of folks, maybe you'll hear about hiring a personal trainer to get physically fit.
Sure.
Well, having a financial advisor is kind of like having your financial personal trainer, in that you're likely to get better outcomes because you'll have more accountability and more diligence towards taking the right steps to make your financial plan successful. When you have someone there kind of holding you on track, cheering you on when you need some encouragement, kicking you in the butt occasionally if you need a kick in the butt, that kind of thing. But really some of the big benefits you might get as well are the sense of security in knowing that you're well planned for, that your goals are on track, that no matter what life throws at you, you've thought through it and have a plan that can respond to it, as needed. And really, it is a chance for you to work with someone that can just kind of bounce ideas off. We have a lot of clients who will reach out to us and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a vacation property or a short-term rental, or should I finance a car or pay cash, or just all kinds of things that, I may not be the exact expert on, but just having that dialogue helps people think through the process so they can get to a decision that works best for them. And probably last, but maybe not least, especially in the market that we're dealing with right now, where a lot of volatility and some poor performance. Oh, yeah. Having an advisor serves as a buffer between the emotions that you are going to have towards your money and maybe not allowing you to make irrational decisions as easily. Because ultimately our goal as an advisor is we want to help clients not have financial regret. And it can be really tough in times like this because we all want to do something. But doing something just for the sake of doing something and feeling useful, even if it doesn't really match your financial plan, that's probably going to lead to financial regret. So those are some of the things I think people will tend to experience at different stages when they're working with an advisor.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree that it's definitely a benefit to have someone that can kind of hold you accountable, that can remind you like, hey, these were your goals and this is where we're at. And like you said, the market's always changing. So it's nice to have someone kind of remind you that and kind of encourage you to just stick with the plan. Oftentimes the plans could change. So maybe you want to invest in something different, or maybe your plans changes and maybe you want to help someone like one of your family members maybe buy a house, or things like that could change. But it's always nice to have someone that's like guiding you and helping you through that. And then also I'm sure you have a lot of connections with other professionals. So if someone needed an attorney, or I don't know, someone else that they need help with, you could also make recommendations and help kind of make those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the real common one is the attorney. People getting an estate plan done. That's like a will or a trust, and not fun things to think about, but important. We do a lot of people ask about at least local clients, realtors, accountants, good banking relationships. I mean, there's a lot of places where we can maybe at least point people in the right direction. And from there, they got to find the right fit for themselves. But at least it's a good start for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like for me as a real estate agent, it's always I always take value in like sharing my contacts and people that I know that do a good job with my clients. I think that's part of my value proposition, and so I think that's good that you also have good connections that you can recommend. So, what are the main elements of a well-balanced financial plan?
So there's different philosophies out there, but one that my philosophy, which I believe very deeply in, is that just like if you were going to build a house, you want to start with a very solid foundation, because if your foundation has cracks, that house is going to be a little dicey. So foundation for a financial plan is really what we call the risk management. It's things like making sure you have enough life insurance in case there's a premature death. It's having enough income protection in case you get sick or hurt and you can't work. It might be liability protection, which usually you can do that with your home and auto insurer. It could be having enough money in an emergency fund so that if you lose a job or there's an interruption of some sort, you're not scrambling and going to high interest credit cards to get by. Once you have that foundation in place, then it's important to start thinking about how can you save money and accumulate wealth in the most efficient manner for the goals that are important to you. So again, that ties back to the retirement, education, those kinds of things. Maybe it's saving up for down payments in the future for real estate or property, but it could also be trying to pay off debt efficiently. I mean, sometimes we can improve our balance sheet most effectively by paying off some of those higher interest rate loans that we have. I work a lot with people in the medical market space, so advanced practice providers, physicians, etc. And there's some serious student loan debt that comes along with that career track. And so for them, part of their wealth accumulation is actually getting rid of debt at the same time of trying to grow their wealth. And once you've done a pretty good job of that, or as you get to those goals, then it's how do you start taking money out of these accounts efficiently? And depending on one's particular situation, thinking about the tax impacts that could apply to their situation and trying to be as strategic and as smart as possible about that. But overall, one of the things we try to do with the elements of a good financial plan is making sure that we're properly allocating resources to the various phases of your life. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to put all your money towards retirement because, nothing's guaranteed in life. So what happens if, there's major changes or there's an illness, injury? You've just bypassed so much of your, good, energetic years that you could do things. At the same time, we don't want to focus all about today and get to retirement not very well prepared and feeling really insecure. So helping you find the balance and making sure that there's the right amount of money going to each of those goals, I think is a really strong way to plan and a smart way to plan.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you. I think that you got to start with the basics. You got to start with a foundation, and then every person's situation is different, and you have multiple factors that you kind of trying to be most efficient and effective with, whether it's taxes, whether it's retirement, investment. So having someone that can kind of guide you and give you options like, hey, these are some options we could do depending on your goals. Maybe this might be better, and let the client decide. So I think that's very valuable to always have options: plan A, plan B, plan C. So that's really good. How much? What's kind of a good guideline for people that are looking to retire that they should be saving based on their income? What are some kind of rules of thumb or things out there?
Yeah. So again, then this would be a general rule of thumb because, like we said, everyone's situation is unique. But in my experience, if a client is saving 20% of their gross income, they are going to have a lot of options and flexibility.
Okay.
People who are saving 15%, they're usually in a pretty good space as well. And some folks may hear that and be like, holy bucket, that's a lot of money. And it's true, it is. But what I always suggest, taking incremental steps to get to that and kind of build a plan and a process if you're not there already. For some, there could be circumstances that's going to make that very challenging. And again, it depends on, if you have what kind of workplace benefits you have, self-employed versus folks working at, a major hospital, maybe a different deal as well, how much you need to save.
That makes sense. And I agree. I mean, I think it's all about building habits. And, if you start small and you build that habit of saving, even if it's 1% of your income or just anything, and then, over time, you'll get used to that. And then you can increase that. So that way it's kind of more of a progressive, step versus like all of a sudden you're just saving 20% of your income. And when you've never, been in the habit of saving anything. So I like that. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the costs of working with a financial advisor?
So this question is a little bit of a tricky one because it can vary widely from advisor to advisor. There are some advisors who will work where the only way you pay anything is if you implement the financial product. And it might be that you decide to purchase an investment product of sorts or an insurance product, and they'll get paid a fee or commission for helping you implement the product, presumably one that fits your needs and everything is the way you would like it to be for that particular goal. There are also ways where advisors will get paid what they call just a management fee. So if they're managing an account for you, there'll be a basic percentage of the account balance that is charged on it's an annual percentage that gets charged in quarterly increments typically. Okay. So they call that the assets under management approach. So that's a common way. Another way could be an advisor who only charges a basic flat fee for the planning and doesn't actually help you implement any of the financial products. It's not part of their service. Their service is really just, here is the plan, here is a cost for this plan that you guys agree upon. And then in reality, like a lot of advisors are some kind of hybrid of that, but there are fewer advisors, generally speaking, that charge a fee to do the plan.
Okay.
And in my case, I charge a fee for the plan for clients who want to do comprehensive planning. And then it's up to them if they would then like me to help them actually implement any of the financial products. So they're almost two separate conversations that could have two different fee structures. The main thing would be is before engaging or moving ahead with an advisor, just feel comfortable about how the fees are charged and if they feel like they're a good value for your particular situation.
Okay, so it sounds like it's the fee structure can vary, and it's just good to know and understand and ask the questions with whoever you're planning or to work with or interviewing. So okay.
And never be afraid to ask the question because an advisor shouldn't hide from that. They should be proud of what they charge because it means they're providing the value and stand behind that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about how do you select a financial advisor then?
Sure. I'm sure there's millions of ways to do this as well, but what I would suggest is, one, you want to work with someone that has invested the time and energy in the career in terms of learning and intellectual property. So I would suggest looking for someone who's a certified financial planner. We call them, basically alphabet soup in terms of designations behind their name. Those designations all mean they've taken specific courses to help them enhance their knowledge base they can transfer into planning ideas for clients. Whom the advisor is affiliated with can be a big deal as well. You can find small boutique firms to, folks like myself that are affiliated with a very large, insurance and investment firm. Either way, you want to kind of try to gauge the strength of that company. So will they still be there standing behind any particular products they may implement? Will they still be in business, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? Because hopefully that's how long that relationship is going to last. You can also use a online search called Broker Check, where it allows you to just type in the advisor's name and see if there are any red flags that pop up in the industry. If they were subject to disciplinary proceedings or anything like that, it would show up. So you can kind of know what their background is that way. Once you get through kind of that basic stuff, I think the most important thing then is, does your personality mesh well with the advisor's personality? Do you enjoy going to see this person? Because if you don't look forward to those discussions, you're not going to want to be as engaged in your planning. And that's going to be a problem. And eventually you'll probably want to have a divorce from your advisor if that's the case. And above all, can you trust them? There's been too many poor publicity, the Bernie Madoffs of the world, that kind of stuff that people will think about. Trust is important. So if you do all your diligence up to this point and you can feel like you can trust a person and your personality meshes well, you've probably got a good fit.
Okay, yeah, those are all good things to consider. Basically, if it's someone that's competent, do you like and trust them, and would have fun working with them, and if that you check all those boxes, that would be like a good candidate to me, right?
Yep, okay, I would agree.
So what happens if you find the best, your favorite advisor, and then you have to move like different city or states? Can you still work with the advisor, or what should you do in that situation?
Really good question. This one applies really close for me because obviously here in Rochester at Mayo Clinic and working with medical professionals primarily, a lot of folks will train here, but then they're going to move on to somewhere else to actually go into practice or continue their career. And so thankfully we live in the world where technology is awesome, and even more so now after COVID, where everybody knows how to hop on a Zoom call. That's like second nature now. Well, I've been doing this for 18 years, and the first 16 years of my career helping people get familiar with the technology was a bit of a challenge. But because of the technology, we've been able to work with our clients no matter where they live. Admittedly, clients in Alaska and Hawaii are a little tough with the time zones, but you kind of make it work. So if you find the right advisor, it doesn't matter where you live, as long as that advisor is credentialed to do business in those states and their firm is credentialed to do business in those states. But for the most part, that's on the advisor to make sure they take care of it, not the clients. So moving's not a problem, so don't worry about having to I'm going to be in one area for a short period of time and then going to move on somewhere else. If you find a good fit, get planning, get going, and they'll be able to keep working with you no matter where you go.
Makes sense. And so how often should you be meeting with your advisor?
Again, advisors may have different philosophies on this, and it may depend on what the arrangement with your planning engagement is. If there's a fee structure, that may be more of a defined time period that you're going to work together. But generally speaking, I think most advisors want to meet with their clients at least once a year. That may be more frequently if there's a lot of events going on in their life that need, more hand-holding in that particular time period. But once you kind of get the normal rhythms of your planning and things are kind of going as they should be, typically once a year is satisfactory, in my opinion.
Okay.
What's interesting is a lot of times folks say, hey, Phil, nothing's really changed this year. It's like, okay, that's great. Let's just catch up for a few minutes anyways. And then lo and behold, you start talking about the year and rewind. You're like, well, actually quite a few things have changed that seem kind of benign to the client because they happen day to day within their life. But for me, who's only checking in, periodically, it's really good that we caught up because maybe we changed beneficiaries or helped them with the little tweak here or there. Maybe nothing game changing, but still important to make sure their plan is being maintained the way it needs to be.
That's good. And I'm sure sometimes loss can change, which also can have effect to your...
Well, that's a great example. In 2020, they passed the Secure Act, which changed things for retirees and when they have to take the required minimum distribution. So if we hadn't been in touch, we might miss that kind of thing. And the great thing is with, these, you can do them online, you can, Zoom, you could do it in person, really just kind of depends. So that the inconvenience factor is really a non-issue now to have those, once a year updates at a minimum.
Okay. So you mentioned you work with people that maybe work at Mayo Clinic or for other companies or organizations that probably offer or that do offer, 403B plans or 401k plans, retirement plans. So the question would be like, do you also help clients manage those or advise on those?
Yeah, to a degree. Now, depending on the plan, we can't act as a fiduciary on like a client's 403B plan because we're not, for lack of a better word, directly connected or in charge of those plans.
Sure.
But if we know what their investment picture should look like, we can help them understand the options they have within their investments and how to use those tools and platforms so it's meshing well and aligned well with their overall plan. It's also a way we try to help them inventory their financial assets. So oftentimes we'll have them connected to their client portal. So if they reach out and say, hey, Phil, I had a question for you, it's right there. I can see, okay, well, this is how you're set up right now. Now that maybe is perfect, or maybe it's a little off from what it should be. We can just kind of talk through how they could go about making those changes so it is fitting with the overall plan that way. So definitely, because the 403B and 401k are usually a very large portion of what folks are saving, because they're going to use that not exclusively, but as a main saving vehicle for retirement, and they get matching funds often. We want to make sure we're staying up to date and really in tune with what their plans look like.
Sure, that makes sense. By the way, if anybody has any questions of what we've talked or anything else, make sure you let us know in the comments below, and we'll be happy and quick to respond to your questions. So now this is a question that I've been looking forward to. It's what are the biggest mistakes that people make with their finances?
Yep, I get this question occasionally, and it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of mistakes. Thankfully, not many of them are catastrophic they can't recover from. It's a lot of times it has to do with, first off, just not knowing their numbers. Much like probably in real estate, Joe, you probably get frustrated if someone doesn't really know what their capabilities are for purchasing a home or selling a home, that kind of thing. Well, in the financial planning world, if people don't have a generally good idea of their monthly income and their monthly expenses and what their surplus is, it's tough for us to help give good guidance. And it's also then frustrating for them when they can't figure out like why they're not making progress. And usually it's a lot of what I call the fluff. It's the spending on things they probably don't really value, but it's secondary default spending they do just because. And that money may not seem like a lot each time they do it, but in the aggregate, it adds up pretty significantly. Sure. I always think to myself, if I can't tell you what I spent money on, I clearly don't value it that much, because if I valued it, I would be able to let you know what it was. People often, I think, make the mistake of waiting to get started saving until they think they can save larger amounts. I think our brains are wired to say, I'll do more later. I'll exercise harder later. I'll start saving later when I can save more. Well, the reality is, like you mentioned earlier, small steps add up and get you in the right direction. Now, I'm not saying that these clients shouldn't try to find the balance between living for today and saving for tomorrow. That's important too. But just kind of putting that out of mind, just kind of telling themselves a story they're going to save more and later. They might, and in some cases, in certain professions, that's true. But building the savings habit, even at small levels, can help combat that big mistake that we see. Amazingly enough, Joe, sometimes we do see folks who aren't putting at least the match into their 401k plans. So most employers have some sort of matching system that if you put in money, they'll put in some money. It's free money. Yeah. So just kind of really is detrimental to give up free money if you have the opportunity to do that. And we do see that occasionally. There's no investment that will consistently return as good as the match will match, because that's free money, and it's it's a dollar for dollar match. That's a heck of a return on your contribution. So the other thing I see, and it's a challenging one because I don't want to sound judgmental here, but people who have may have a jump in their income at some point in their profession, or just in general, get too caught up or in over their head with material possessions, cars, the millions of subscription services we can get involved with. Sometimes it's housing. They maybe bite off more than they can chew, or they did buy the house. Now they think they have to have it immaculately furnished immediately. And that can lead into some consumer debt that becomes a pretty challenging hole to get out of, not to mention just the general strain that it puts on the budget for them trying to focus on the goals that really are important to them. But now we're trying to figure out how can we fix the budget. And some of those things like houses and cars, once you have them, you really can't easily adjust the payments without refinancing or selling the house or the car, which isn't likely to happen. So those are some of the big ones that we see. There are lots of other ones that come into play, but those are the most common ones that I tend to see.
Right. I feel like we could do a whole video talking about this mistakes or room for opportunity. Yeah. I think there's so much we can talk about this. I think one of the things that you mentioned about knowing your numbers in college, my professor would say that you can't manage what you can measure. So like knowing what your income is, expenses, is going to help you achieve your goals faster and better because you know your numbers. So I think that's really good. I think too, like you talked about like people, that delayed gratification. Here in Rochester, there's a lot of people that are in healthcare, whether you're a resident, doctor, and you've been like putting all this work and effort into fulfilling your dreams with your career, and then finally you're making, a good amount of money, and now you want to like start having fun, but there's other factors that play into it. So I think kind of, being able to, adjust to that slowly. And, you talked about sometimes some of your clients or people you've seen who will buy a house that's maybe bigger than they can, whether it's afford or even, I would say, maintain. A lot of times people forget that, if you go from like a 2,000 square foot home to now a 4,000 square foot home, the roof is bigger, landscaping is bigger, everything's going to cost more to repair and maintain. So I think having those conversations, whether it's with a financial advisor or with a realtor or a professional that can help you kind of predict some of those expenses. I think it's important because I've heard from some clients or just from news articles I read online that there's a lot of people that when they, those move up buyers, sometimes they forget how expensive things can get with utilities, maintenance, and all that. So these are all great.
Especially in our nice Minnesota winters, that's 4,000 square feet gets twice as expensive to keep warm.
Yes. Exactly. And then the other thing too, you mentioned about employer matches. Sometimes I wonder if companies really tell their employees about these opportunities and, kind of getting them. Obviously they can't force them to do that, but if you're getting like free money for your retirement, I just feel like, that should be like something that everyone should be doing. But
it's funny you mention it, Joe, because I think one of the advantages of working with an advisor is you get that customized approach where it's a lot to ask your employer's HR department to also act as kind of your financial advisor or guidance person, because they don't know, they're not licensed or qualified to talk that way. So while they want to make sure you know what your options are, they're unlikely to say, now, hey, Joe, you're not putting the most in as you could at the match. They probably think that, but they don't really have a way to communicate that to you. So having someone kind of getting back to the holding you accountable and just maybe addressing the strengths and weaknesses, that would be a weakness you'd want to make sure you're addressing.
Sure. That way. And they have other things to do, like, being a financial advisor is not their job. It's not what they do. That's what you do, right? That's what, financial advisor, that's their job. So that's another benefit of having a financial advisor. So, all right, Phil, last question for you is, what is your favorite thing about being a financial advisor?
Sure. I don't want this to sound corny, but really what is most exciting is looking back on the 18 years of doing this is I've been able to create a lot of long-lasting relationships with clients, even though some of them I haven't seen besides a computer screen in 15 years. And it's so gratifying to see how the work that we've done together has significantly helped them achieve the peace of mind and quality of life that they want. And it's been all intentionally created and by design. So they are more or less where they're at to the planning that they've done. Now, I get to be a part of that planning, but still the hard work is being done by the clients. We're just there kind of to help encourage again and coach. And, it's just so fun to start seeing some of their kids growing up, and it's just, those relationships are everything. And the most fun part of my job is always, and probably always will be, is getting the chance to meet somebody new, see if we can be of help to them. And if we are, it's cool to see how those relationships just blossom and maintain long term. So that sounds a little corny, but really it is the most fun thing. Is it's a people business.
Yes,
it's a lot of new people.
Phil, I will say that one of my favorite parts of my job too is creating those relationships. A lot of times, a lot of the clients I work with become friends, and even after they buy the house or sell the house, we stay in contact, and just I like to help them with any other things or questions they have. So it's really a relationship, and my job is also a people business, so I understand 100% where you're coming from. So Phil, what would be the best way if people have more questions, they want to reach out to you? Obviously they can drop questions on the comments below, but if they want to get more information from you or about you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Probably the best way would be going to philipreiter.com. It's our website. All of our contact information is there. There's articles people can read, there's calculators, there's just a lot of information they could explore on their own if they want. And if they felt compelled and wanted to reach out to have a discussion, again, my email, my phone numbers, all that's right there. We can certainly arrange that. Perfect.
All right, Phil, thanks for your time. And hopefully we can do more of these videos. And the next one that I would love to do is talking about, investing in stock market and real estate and other options of investment. So hopefully we can get something like that going soon here. But thanks for your time, Phil.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Joe. It was fun. Look forward to the next time.
Thanks.